Okay, we are live, Klaus. Apparently. So still have to figure out exactly how this works. Yeah, it seems like it's good. Yeah, I guess we are live on YouTube and LinkedIn. So yeah, still configuring a couple of things.
What's the name of the stream
What do you mean the name of the stream?
on the on YouTube? Brunner PI. Oh,
Yeah,
here I can
exactly. It's
see.
in the Bruno PI.
Oh no, yeah, I found it. Yeah, cool.
Just gonna start sharing my screen to see if everything will be fine.
Oh, I can see the. I can actually see the comments the comment that I just wrote on YouTube.
Oh yeah, nice.
Here, yeah. I'll try joining in LinkedIn.
Yeah.
See what happens. Midtime.
Oh, and I can show those actually. So I can basically put this.
Oh,
Yeah.
but there's a delay. Yeah.
Mhm. So I can show your comment. Um,
Ah, yeah.
yeah, but test comment. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, yeah, that's cool. So that seems to be working. I'm just curious if the resolution is good enough on the live stream. Let's see. I'm just gonna open it up myself. Yeah, I think it's seems to be all right.
We'll
Let's
test the admin mode just to see, like, with some parameters.
so I think we should just also post the YouTube link to LinkedIn in case, because Pedro said the quality is better there. So maybe we can post that. I'm just gonna post it to the LinkedIn event. Because maybe for some people it's also better to join via YouTube. You can put it on your TV or something. Yeah. Okay. Cool. But it seems to be working. That's nice. Just gonna start sharing my Power BI again. Yeah, probably it's not full HD, the quality, but hopefully it's good enough so people can see everything somehow. But as far as I know, they scale stuff down, right, Klaus? So
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so maybe we can go back to our original view. Yeah, so here we go. Can wait a little longer for more people to join. Then we can kick this thing off. Yeah,
Live
exactly.
already? Or is it closed?
Sorry, what?
Live already?
It's live.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool,
we
cool,
have an old
cool.
friend joining from Berlin, probably. Yeah, I don't know. I think it scales it down to 720p from Full HD. I don't know. I think LinkedIn Live does this apparently. It's our first LinkedIn or YouTube Live, so yeah, we'll run into some problems here and there, I guess. But so far everything looks okay. Yeah. Can also put in some marketing messages. Follow us on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Fancy, fancy.
Download Measure Killer. Yeah, it's not
That's good.
bad. Okay, so I'm just gonna check if everything else is working. So probably you should check a little bit the comments. I don't know if I will see all of them, especially when I start sharing my screen. And yeah, otherwise we'll be ready to go. I guess we have people already in here. Yeah, looks good. I can only see the count from YouTube, but we have more people joining through LinkedIn. We had almost 130 people sign up for the event, so pretty nice, I think. Let me just wait 2 more minutes until we get started, and then we'll kick this thing off. Okay, looks good. Yeah, so we will wait 1 more minute for everyone to join, and then we'll get started here. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our very first LinkedIn and YouTube live event. We're absolute beginners when it comes to streaming, but let's see how it goes today. Just in case we have some hiccups, I would like to apologize for that. Like I said, it's the first time for us. Yeah, so my name is Gregor Brunner. I'm the founder of Brunner BI, and you might know us from our external tool, Measure Killer. And also we have Klaus here. Maybe Klaus, you can introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, thank you very much for joining. I'm a senior developer at Brunner BI, and uh, yeah, thank you very much for joining. I hope what we're going to show will be useful.
Nice. So yeah, we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, so you can post your questions or comments at any time. Our software here, it seems like we will get all those comments, and then we can also answer them during the presentation. Today will be all about shared datasets. So we will take a look at how we can find certain data sets in our Power BI tenant that maybe are not performing as well as they should, and then also what we can do about those data sets and maybe optimize them, clean them up, reduce the model size. I mean, this is a very important topic, I think, and since we have been developing the tool Measure Killer, we will show most of the presentation basically using this tool, which I think is basically the only tool that can really optimize and identify those shared data sets that basically we have in the Power BI service also. So we will start now with a slide about the premium capacity metrics. That is something that exists in all tenants that ordered or purchased a premium capacity from Microsoft. And in there, I cannot show it to you, unfortunately, now live. I can just show you some screenshots from the Microsoft website. So for example, here you can see that we have various charts here. We can see some tables. And this is basically the first point. I think we can take a look at which data sets create a certain load on our premium capacity, because those might be the first ones we want to take a look at in terms of optimizing the whole thing. So we want to see how big those data sets are in our premium tenant. We want to see how much load they take from our capacity. And here, for example, you can see that we have, let me show, actually, yeah. So on the left, on the bottom left here, you can see the CPU seconds and the duration seconds. This is basically the processing that goes through the capacity, and the duration is the whole load, how long basically it takes. We can see the users in the third column and on the bottom left. And that way we can get an idea of how costly certain data sets are. And then we can go ahead and take a look at those inside the Measure Killer, for example. On the top right, we can also see like in over the last few weeks, we can see how often our capacity might have been overloaded. So you can see here that at some point, maybe the capacity goes over the 100% CPU limit. And it can go above that, I think, but it's just not a really good sign. And in the next slide, we can see this even a little bit better. So if you look now at the top right, you can see this is this yellow horizontal bar is the 100% CPU threshold, and you can see that sometimes maybe we go over that. This means that some refreshes, some interactivity, actually in this case it's interactivity. This means people using the reports, clicking somewhere, and then we need to calculate all of these things. As soon as we go above those 100%, maybe the capacity will slow down, we'll have some problems. And this is basically all part of the second page of this premium capacity utilization. As you can see on the top left, it says evidence. Here we can find items or data sets that cause overloading in our premium capacity. So that would be really interesting to see basically how much a data set causes our capacity to overload, which data sets those are, and how long this overloading actually takes place. Of course, the bigger your tenant is, the more interesting I think those metrics will be. So if you have a very large tenant, this is probably the area where you want to start optimizing your Power BI tenant. And with our external tool, I think we have a really good way of basically, once we have identified this data set, to go to the next step and to see what we can do about this. And maybe if there are some things we can cut from a data set. Yeah, so that's it for the premium capacity metrics. So now I just want to share my screen and show you basically a test data set that we have developed just for this presentation. And we can see how we can find reports that were built on this data set, and also what we can do about optimizing this data set. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to deactivate the slide. And like I said already at the beginning, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We have a chat available in YouTube live and also on LinkedIn. Yeah, please post your questions there. We will do our best to answer them as soon as possible. Okay, so in this case now, we have a data set that is taking a lot of data from the International Movie Database. So I thought that's an interesting data set to show. We have all kinds of movies in there. We can see how those movies were rated, how many people voted on how often basically those movies were rated. And then imagine we have a couple of reports built on top of this data set. Not only in this workspace, this is my testing workspace here, we have a premium per user capacity. Well, it's not a capacity, premium per user license. We can see here that we have 3 reports built on top of this data set, even though this report on the top right is basically just an empty page part of the data set. So this is not really relevant, but we have, for example, this quick summary. This was a report I had Power BI built automatically. So it's one of those auto build reports just to get some content there. And then we have a second report, the best movies. So that is basically something kind of cool, I would say, where we can see a scatter plot, and on the y-axis we have the average rating that those movies got. So every dot is one movie, and then on the x-axis we have the number of votes. And here I kind of pre-selected, I said, okay, let's do at least maybe, for example, 200,000 votes. Maybe we can go up to, I don't know, 400,000 votes, just to get a little less movies here. And you can see here it's sorted, or it's colored, actually. This is the legend. It's colored by when those movies came out. So one of the best movies of all times, maybe the #1 movie of all times, as some of you might know, is the Shawshank Redemption that came out in the 90s. It has 2.7 million votes and a really, really good rating. Then we have a couple of other movies here, The Dark Knight, we have Inception, Fight Club, Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction. You can see there's quite a couple orange ones, right? These were from the 90s, where we had a lot of good movies, but then also some older ones like The Godfather. And then Lord of the Rings are from the 2000s. So this is just a simple report that is pulling data from this movie database data set that I built. So we have the best movies, we have this quick summary, and as you can see here, when I go to show impact across workspaces, Power BI will also show me if there have been reports built on top of this data set in other workspaces. But one thing to remember is this will only show me those workspaces where I have access to. So this is not really tenant-wide. It really means where I, with my user, have access. And you can see here that those three reports that I showed already, they're in this testing workspace. But then there's also a different report that was built in our MK workspace. And we're just going to take a look at this. Actually, Klaus built this report. Maybe Klaus, you want to explain a little bit about this report? I think I modified a little bit, but mainly you built this thing. So
Well, I just built this. It was on our team meeting, right? So if I remember correctly, this is basically evaluating the statistic of movies, and it was to prove that basically movies nowadays they decreased in quality overall, which is kind of true to be honest. But yeah.
even though now, look at this, we can see now that the average rating went up a lot, especially in 22 and 23. So maybe the average rating is kind of stable, but yeah, it's still interesting to see that actually in the last few decades also seems like the average rating went up a little bit. So anyway, it's just an interesting report. We can click around here, but in the end, we'll still go back to the data set, right? So we have this data set, we have reports. We're not really sure. I mean, we can see here, of course, all the reports that were built, but what are we going to do now? So if we have identified a data set that is causing problems in our tenant, that is slowing down everything, we can get the measure killer up and running. So if you have never used measure killer before, you can go to the website, measurekiller.com. And there you can download this thing. You can look at everything, the documentation, what it's all about. Measure Killer is a tool to analyze your reports and datasets, and you can also analyze shared datasets that reside in the Power BI service. And you can also go to download here and just download it either from our website or from the Microsoft Store. And there you can get, so from our website, you can get the admin version, means here you need to have admin rights on your local machine to install it. And the benefit is then that you can, when you go to Power BI, you can start Measure Killer from within Power BI. And if you don't have admin rights, you can get this portable version here. And that is only available from the website. So it's not available through the Microsoft Store. And then you can install it. And I'm just going to start running this thing now. And then we will take a look at what we have. So the current version is 0910. We will soon release a huge brand new version, 1.0. So we're going on the full release version soon, probably in 2 weeks or so. And in Measure Killer, you can analyze a single report or dataset. You can analyze shared dataset locally. It means you have to download the dataset, you have to download all the connected reports, and also you have to find those reports in the tenant, which sometimes might be tricky. Of course, also downloading the dataset in some cases might not be working. And then we have this mode where we can analyze things in the Power BI service. And this is what we're going to focus on today. But this is actually a paid feature. So if you're interested in this, you can either purchase a license or you can request a trial license from us also for your organization. So I'm going to start up this thing. The first thing I need to do is I need to authenticate with my Microsoft account, because here we're doing some API calls, actually one API call initially. to get the list of workspaces, right, Klaus?
Yes, exactly. And the datasets, obviously.
Okay. So as soon as I authenticated, I have here a little drop down with all the premium workspaces in my Power BI tenant. Why premium, Klaus?
Well, because unfortunately, is a Power BI limitation. We can only do XMLA read within Power BI premium workspaces.
Right. So the XMLA endpoint is a premium feature. We can only use that. And since we are pulling metadata from this data set, we need to do this through the XMLA workspace, XMLA endpoint. So maybe before we do all this, let's take a quick look at our data set. So we have a couple of tables here. For example, we have a ratings table. In there, we can see this is basically an ID that we have. This tconst column is the ID of the movie. Then we have an average rating and we have number of votes. So we can see, for example, here, I think this is the Shawshank Redemption, has like 2.7 million votes. And that's just, so it seems like the top movies also have a lot of votes, but just to give you a little context about the data set, we only have 3 tables here. So might not be as much as you have in a productive shared data set, but we actually have a very large data set. So this whole thing is almost 500 megabytes big. So we will have a lot of potential for optimization here. Then we have a table where we have the people who took part in this movie. It could be like a director, actors, actresses, editors, producers, whatever. They're basically in this table here. And then this basics table is actually the main interesting table, I would say, where we have all the movies listed, where every movie is in one row. And also, for example, we have a column for identifying if this is an adult movie or not. And for example, if we just go here, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with adult movies, but we have 10,000 adult movies out of the 650,000 rows that we have in here. So yeah, so we have all kinds of stuff in here. And of course, then we have genres, which, yeah, it's more like a collection. So it's kind of tough to parse this. We would have to split this up. We have a region, language. We have all kinds of attributes. And also, for example, we have the years. So we even have movies all the way into the future, which is interesting. Avatar 5 apparently will come out in 8 years, or they will start producing it in 8 years. Avatar 4 in 6 years. So it's kind of funny that in this movie database from IMDb, you even have movies all the way planned into the future, basically. So that's kind of interesting. You can see here that some of them already have the runtime minutes fixed, even though it's 6 years into the future when they start. What is your favorite movie, Klaus?
Obviously, The Lord of the Rings, of
Lord
course.
of the Rings. Wait,
Yeah, of all of them.
all of
Cannot
them.
choose one, yes.
Okay. Let's see how many
I
Lord
think
of the Rings movies we have here. Lord of the... So I'm scanning now. Oh, actually, okay. So maybe let's do a proper text filter here. Starts with the Lord of the... Let's see if this works. Here we go. Well, almost. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So we have a couple of those. Yeah. Oh, so next year there will be one coming out, apparently. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, so far about our data set. And yeah, so then we have a couple of measures, counting the movies, first category, whatever, number of votes, average rating. So we have those measures in a measure table. We have them organized in display folders. just to give you a little overview of what we're dealing with, right? Because we want to optimize something, we also want to understand this thing first. So back to Measure Killer. So now I need to select the workspace where my dataset resides in. In our case, this is the testing workspace. So I'm gonna go here and click on datasets. And now it's gonna give me all the datasets in that workspace. And we're gonna go for this IMDb. I'm gonna click on connect here. And now I have to authenticate again. Klaus, maybe you wanna explain why that is?
This is you're trying to connect to the XMLA endpoint. And before we are doing some API calls, including the workspace, you can check on the Microsoft Docs for Power BI REST APIs. You'll find everything there. So we do some calls to get, obviously, to get all the workspaces, to get the data sets, and the reports connected to the selected data set. And that's a different authentication, right? And this XMLA endpoint is another authentication we have to do. Now, in the new version, the token for the APIs, it expires in 1 hour. So if you run Measure Killer several times, in 1 hour, you don't have to authenticate many times. Unfortunately, for the XMLA endpoint, you have to do it more
We
often.
have to do it every time.
Yeah, every time. Yeah.
Okay, so the previous API call to get to basically log on to this online mode, that will be stored in the next version. But apparently for XMLA, we have to do it every time. Okay, so I clicked here, and now I have a list of workspaces here. And here, this is really important now. So here we have all kinds of workspaces, so also non-premium workspaces. And that is basically to search through maybe all of them. Those are all the workspaces I have access to. So basically whatever is in the UI here, whatever I can see here, those are the ones I have access to, obviously, and then also Measure Killer will be able to search them. Of course, in some scenarios, or in quite a couple of scenarios, we want to search the whole tenant, right? In this version, we don't have that yet. There will be a version coming out, like I said, in 2 weeks, where we'll have this admin mode, where we can basically search the whole tenant, no matter which user is executing the query. As long as the user is an admin, we'll find all reports that have been built on a certain data set. But for now, in this version, you still have to get access to those workspaces in order to analyze the reports.
Might I add something? We're going to show you how it works on the end. Of course, it's still a work in progress. There's still some stuff we have to fix, obviously, but by the end of the presentation, 10 minutes, we're going to show you how it's going.
Yeah, so we'll take some risk and show you stuff that is currently under development and maybe still a little buggy, but just to show you guys some sneak peek into the future where we can basically run this thing over the whole tenant, which I think especially in larger organizations is very, very needed. Yeah, but for now, I want to just search those workspaces I have access to. And now it will do those API calls. And just like in the UI, we got those 4 reports that have been built on top of our IMDb dataset. And of course, this thing here, that's just this empty page that is part of my dataset. So there's nothing here. And actually, I don't want to include this in our analysis. So 1 second. So I'm just gonna exclude this from the analysis. So you have full flexibility in the selection of workspaces where you want to search, but then also when you get your results, you can take out some reports that you don't want to include in that analysis. Okay, so once I have selected this, I can run Measure Killer. It's just double checking. Yeah, I'll do 3 API calls. I'm gonna check those reports, and What is really important, the speed of the analysis of Measure Killer does not depend on the data. It's only reading metadata. What it depends on is, for example, if you have a lot of visuals in your report, if you have hundreds or thousands of visuals in your reports, if you have hundreds or thousands of measures or columns, it doesn't matter how many rows, but it's about the number of artifacts and also especially number of visuals. That is gonna decide how long the analysis that we're about to start will take. And what about custom visuals, Klaus?
Custom visuals, they usually, it depends a lot on the custom visual. We tested for a bit of them, like icon map, which is my personal favorite. But depending, obviously, on the visual, sometimes it takes more because there is more fields to look for. The complexity, one of the worst for us is actually not a custom visual, is the storytelling, the AI one, which is,
Mhm.
it takes a lot of time. It depends, obviously, but I can say for certain that the speed of Measure Killer, the execution, will depend on the number of measures and columns and the number of visuals,
Right.
usually.
Okay, so since we have some small reports here, it should go fairly quick. So let's start this. You can see here, actually it was a little too quick to show, but it fetches those reports. It basically does an API call for every report I selected, and then it puts all of this together with the data set, and then gives me this analysis here. And you can see here quite some stuff is red, some things are white. The red things are the artifacts, meaning measures or columns that are not used at all. So that is really interesting that we have quite a few things that are not used, and the white things are used. So for example, here, this decade column of my basics table, you can see here, it's used in a bar chart, it's used in a filter of the whole page. It's used in two different reports, actually, in the histogram and in the best movies report. And we can also see, since this is a column, we can also see its size. So remember, our data set has 500 megabytes. So we want to optimize this data set, make it smaller, and kick out everything that is currently not needed. And I can sort here by the size. And for example, I can see that the most costly column in our whole data set is this T constant, which is basically an ID column. And that is actually used in a relationship only. So maybe that already is something that we might want to remove at some point. We might think about it if we really need this thing or not. The second and third most costly columns are also part of this table. So this principal table seems to be the largest table in my model. And if we just look at our data sources here, since I have them on the computer now, it's kind of easy. But if you pull stuff from the database or from Power BI data flows, of course, it's a little harder. But you can see here that those files that I loaded into Power BI have in total almost 5 gigabytes uncompressed size, right? And then Power BI, through its magic, can compress those 5 gigabytes into less than half a gigabyte. And of course, what we see here is basically the uncompressed size, but yeah, something like that. So so here we can still see what is used and what is not used, and also which tables of our data set it belongs to. So what do I do next, right? The first thing I would recommend when you start optimizing your data set is to remove the unused measures. Of course, you might want to check if you might need those measures in the future, but maybe we can, for now, take them out. And since we're doing an online analysis here, Measure Killer cannot kick them out directly. it cannot kill those measures directly. Those options are grayed out here. So this is only possible if I run the local mode of Measure Killer. But I can get a C# script. And what I do, since I have the file open here, I can just open Tabular Editor and just put this in here and then remove those measures myself just by executing this Tabular Editor script. I'm just gonna do this quickly. You can see here, boom, and they're gone. Oh, I have to save, sorry. I have to save first, and now they're gone. You can see here, only 3 measures actually remain. I can close Tabular Editor. So we have a lot of unused measures. And if I go back here and I just sort by the measures, you can see what we saw before, that basically we only have 3 measures that are used across our various reports. So the rest is gone now. And we also have unused columns. Those are a little easier to remove. And also, I think it's a better way to remove those. When you go to kill columns, you will always get an M code. So it's basically something in Power Query. Let's just open Power Query here. So here we have our various tables, and Measure Killer will only suggest in this dropdown here the tables that have unused measures, unused columns, sorry. So basically, what we can see here is the principals table has almost 500 megabytes of unused size, since we have a couple of columns here. And I can just go to apply, and now I can copy this code, and this is the principals, and you can see here, this is the table as it was before in Power Query, and I'm just gonna select the whole code, and I'm gonna paste what Measure Killer gave me, and it basically just puts those 2 columns in that we currently need, and everything else is gone. And this is a very cool way to remove our unused artifacts. You can see here the table got much more narrow, and I can do the same for basics. Apply, copy, go into basics, put in this step, and if anytime I want to go back and say, oh, actually that was a mistake, I have the option to either remove this step entirely and then basically go back to what we had before, right? Or one of my favorite things about those parts of Power BI is those little wheels here on the right side, these options. And I think this is only available if I do remove other columns. If I had done remove columns, I think there is no options to adjust this later on. You can see now this takes a little bit because I'm also joining this ACAS table into the basics. We have hundreds of megabytes. You can see here on the bottom right, just removing this will take some time. There's also no query folding happening right now because this is just some text files. And now it is done. You can see here that our table got a little smaller. And if I go to here, that's actually what I was talking about. Basically, afterwards, I have the option to select which columns I want to keep in. If this thing loads, I don't know. I already clicked here. Seems like it's taking some time. Yeah, sometimes you have to have some patience, even though it's a good machine that I'm running this on. Sometimes we have to wait a little bit. Or this whole thing crashed now. I don't know what happened. Yeah, Power BI is also not perfect, but most of the time it's working quite well. Here we go. So it took some time. But in the end, now you can see that all those things that are unchecked is what Measure Killer took out. So even I don't have to remove this step entirely. I can also just later say, okay, let's put those two things in. I'm just going to cancel here because I don't want to do that. But that's the flexibility you get. And now I'm going to go to close and apply, and we'll let those changes run through. This will take some time since we have a large data set. And then what I can do is I can re-upload this to the service and see if everything is still working. And then we can run Measure Killer again and see how it looks then. That's basically the way of optimizing and removing unused things. And what is really important, I think, is also to understand that not everything will go in the first run. So there could be a column that is only used in a measure that is not used. So imagine we have a column that is only used in a measure that is not used. What does that mean? Okay, so we have a measure that is not used. That is something we will remove now, or we already removed actually. We already removed a couple of measures, right? Um, but those columns in here, what we see here, those columns are used because there's a measure built on top of those columns, right? For example, let's see. No, not this one, not this one. Let's see if we have a column. Here we go. This column, end year, part of our basics table, is used. Measure Killer says, don't remove it, or at least it says it is used, but it's only used in this max end year. And you can see here that this measure is already gone. So when we run Measure Killer again, next time, we can basically also remove this column. So it might take multiple runs for Measure Killer to find all the removed, all the unused things, because some interdependencies might occur. Klaus, do you also maybe want to say something regarding this?
Yes, sure. This is one of the problems that we are trying to solve. It depends how deep we want to go. We call it the second class measures and columns, right? They are only used in unused stuff. So it depends on the size of the report. It can cause some problems. We're testing it,
Right.
the solution for this new version, but I
Yeah.
don't
So
think we're going. Yeah.
so we'll add more and more functionality in that sense in the future. But currently, you still might have to do multiple runs. That's just how it is right now. So now I saved this data set, and as you can see here, look, our file size already went down from 480 megabytes to 219 megabytes. So that is quite powerful, I think. And this was just the first run, right? So I'm gonna upload this again to the Power BI service and then run Measure Killer again. So let me just reset Measure Killer here. We're done with this for now. And as soon as the upload finishes, we can see, first of all, we could check quickly if our reports are still working or Measure Killer deleted something that was used. This should not happen. We're very careful that we don't delete anything that is used anywhere. This is basically the worst case for us. But let's just take a quick look. If everything is still working, this report is still good. Best movies is good. And this is actually the report built by Microsoft, the Power BI service, this auto create report. So everything is still working. And we have our updated data set here. Let me just refresh to really make sure. Yes, this is the one I just uploaded, right? Okay, so let's run it again. Let's see how much we can cut from this data set. So let's go here. I'm gonna do XMLA. Actually, here it saved it, right? It does save it, the connection.
I guess it's because you just went back.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you did the reset, so yes, it the token still
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 valid.
is valid, yes. But
Right.
when you reset, when you close, I'm sorry, when you
Mhm.
close Measure Killer and then you reopen it, then
Okay.
you had to authenticate again. But
Right.
now the new version will come with this problem solved.
Great. Yeah, so I'm doing everything just like before. I'm gonna continue. It's downloading those report layouts, which is basically the metadata of those reports. And now we can see, first of all, we have much less artifacts. We have less columns and measures generally in our data set. And we have also, most of them are used, right? But some things, like remember this end year, this was not there first. At the beginning, this was white and it was used, and now it is unused because we removed this unused measure that was built on top of that. And something that is important also, generally, everything we see here is part of either the data set, and most things are part of the data set, but there can be also measures built into reports, meaning report level measures. For example, some users are building measures on top of the data set. We will also see them here. We don't maybe want to remove those. We would have to go into those reports themselves. We're more focused on the data set, but we still can see that there were measures built in certain thin files in those reports. And what I haven't showed yet, but I think surely some of you already know this, we can create an documentation in Excel um, where we can have many more, much more information about our reports and data set than what we can see in this table here. And I'm just going to show you this. So we have a whole timestamp here. We have the date and so on, and then we'll get a huge analysis of what's going on. For example, we have here the DAX expressions of those measures, of all the measures. We also have the column size. We see where things are used, the reference objects. We have this category column, which is very interesting, where we can see where things are used, like in a visual, in all types of filters, in relationships. Measure Killer is also tracking active and inactive relationships. We have the various pages in the reports, visual titles, so we can see exactly which visuals it is used on. We have even subtitles, even though they're not used here. So this is the documentation part of Measure Killer, which a lot of people also find very, very helpful. Let me just close this here. And let's go back to our analysis. So we have still a little way to go. And what I'm most interested in are the biggest columns, right? So, and you can see here that this ID column in our principles table is by far the largest column now in our data set. And let me take a look at the whole table. So principles has now two columns. One is unused category, and the other one is only used in a relationship. Well, I mean, do we even need this? Right? It's only there. It is somewhere in the relationship. We have a relationship here between principles and ratings, but actually we're not using anything else from this table. So why not kick out the whole table entirely, right? In some cases, of course, maybe you want to keep it, but in our case, hey, yeah, it's only used here. Nothing else is needed. We're not counting anything. I would say we'll kick out this principles table completely, and then this will drastically remove our model size. And what else do we have? We can see here we have two measures that are unused, and we have one other column. So maybe actually we can. Oh, actually, sorry. Those two measures I cannot remove because they were built in the thin files, so we don't really care about it. Those are not part of the data set. So I'm not going to remove those. But if I go to filter unused, this is actually the best view to see what is left to cut. You can see that we basically have those two columns. Like I said, principals will kick out entirely, and then end year is the column we'll remove from the basics table, and then we'll see what happens. So let me go into Power Query. I'm just going to deactivate the load of principals because maybe I want to add it later on just in case. So this is gone now. And since this is only one column, the end year in basics, I can just go here into basics. I can go to those options and I can take out its end year, right? So I'm going to take out end year here and I'm going to say, okay. Now let's go to close and apply. Now this whole thing is loading through again. Let's just give it some time to load everything. And then I'm really interested in the size of our data set. Oh, let me just put this somewhere else. It's just some backup. It's always good to keep backups. Of course, obviously I already did something before, but generally it's always good to keep a backup of your file in case something goes wrong. So let's see. This is still loading, but originally we had almost 500 megabytes, right? Now we have 219. And since we cut the by far, most costly column, what is your guess, Klaus? How low is it gonna go?
Oh, I would say 100, 100, I bet. Yes.
100 megabytes?
100 megabytes. Yes.
Yeah. By the way, I was not really checking the chat so much. I think there's something in Portuguese there. I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah, we can answer it later.
Okay, sure. Also, Bernard told us we can turn off the data preview. Yes, that was something that slowed everything down when I clicked on those options. Thanks for this tip. So I think now actually this is quite cool to also, yeah. So guys, what do you think? Or before we had this size, right? This is what was currently in our data set, and we had 219 megabytes of compressed size. We removed this very costly column here, and we removed I think the end year and the category. So two smaller ones, but this really big one. Let's play a little game. Give us your guesses. How low is it gonna go? Everybody will guess. I also have no idea. I have not tested this. I've never done this before. But let's get an idea of how good the compression is. So Klaus, maybe you can start. What is your guess? How low is it gonna go? Come on, tell us.
Yeah, 100. 100, I would
100.
say. Yes, that's my bet.
Klaus is going for 100. I think it's gonna be much less than that. I think it's gonna be 20 megabytes.
20 megabytes. I'm not so very optimistic.
Everybody on the stream, we're gonna give you some time. Think about it. This is kind of cool exercise, I think. How well do you think the compression is? How low do you think the file size will go from those 219 if I remove, like I just did, all those unused columns, especially this big one that is using almost 500 of uncompressed storage? What is your guess? Give us a number in the chat, and let's see who is closest to whatever will happen here. Is Pedro also in the call? Maybe he can also take a guess. Pedro is one of our colleagues who is also working on Measure Killer. So we have 100 megabytes from Klaus. I'm guessing 20 megabytes. Anybody else on the live stream wanna do a lucky guess? What can you win? Anything people can win? I think there's also, we have to wait a little bit because there's a few
There's a
seconds.
delay, right?
Okay, there's a delay. So we have one guess already from Pedro. Pedro is guessing 40. Bernard is guessing 35. So I guess I'm pretty low here, so I hope I didn't miscalculate. But yeah, we'll see. Anything else before we'll go ahead and save this thing? Anybody else wants to guess? Okay, anyway, so 219, let's save this thing and see what happens. Boom, save. Ooh, 42.
Oh,
Pedro.
Yeah.
Pedro won. Well done. Great. Okay, so I guess I was a little too optimistic, but yeah, we can see that by removing those things, the unused columns and measures, well, measures actually, I mean, they don't contain any, they don't take any size in our data model, but we got it down to 42 from 480, 490 megabytes. And that is quite powerful, I think. So let me actually upload this thing again. So we had to do 2 runs here. Let's see. Yeah, I think Pedro, you're definitely up for a promotion since you got this right. um, so let me upload this again to our testing workspace, and let's see if everything is still working, right? We don't want to, this is a live demo. We have never tested this before. This is also to show that Measure Killer is actually working or not, if we'll see. So everything should still be up and running here in our histogram, the best movies, and also this quick summary. Looks good, nothing broke down. I'm just gonna refresh here. We can see here, this is the data set I just uploaded now. And now I wanna run Measure Killer a final time. Just quickly testing, boom, boom. So if you know what you're doing, you can do this quite fast. And here we go. And this is basically a clean output since the unused artifacts are only part of the thin reports, the thin files, and none of them are part of the data set. So this is basically where we can say, well, we have done everything. We have cut whatever we could. And now the reports, the dataset refresh, and everything should be much, much better than originally. Because imagine every refresh, they would have to load those hundreds or actually was gigabytes of uncompressed data. And now it will be much faster. And this is basically how you can use this tool to optimize your tenant even or various datasets that reside in your Power BI tenant. So yeah, this was the full cleanup that we did. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. That was pretty good.
Yeah, so this is our new data set, right? We have it saved here. Actually, I can close this. There's nothing left to cut. We could only remove those measures from the thin files, which we don't really care about. Maybe somebody else built this report. People also want to build their own measures, right? I mean, that's completely fine. And now, do we have any questions, guys? Anything so far that was not clear? Any comments? Any feedback you want to give? Have you used Measure Killer before? We're interested in what you guys think, what we can improve. Of course, also what is still to come is the new version. But let's just give some time for people to maybe ask some questions or some comments. Um, so, and then we can go to the long-awaited um, presentation by Klaus. So we have a question right here. That's a perfect question for what we're about to show, because analyzing
True,
Excel
true, true.
has been a long-awaited feature, and people have always asked about this. And so maybe, Klaus, you can give a brief overview of the main features that we will release in the new version.
Of course. Let me start then. I'll share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see. Is it streaming? Oh yeah, it is. It is. Let me just adjust this. So basically, what I'm about to show you guys, it's a test version. Of course, it's a work in progress.
Sure. So this is the new version that we're about to release in maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And here we go. I have not enabled your. Oh, here we go. This is it.
Here we go. Okay. Yeah, now I can see it. So yeah, basically this is the new version, and we've been working on it a lot, I might add.
Yeah.
And we added a lot of things, including analyzing Excel. The problem is, of course, you cannot detect automatically which, because it's just a flat file, right? It's basically it's an Excel file. You cannot detect it. It's not published to the Power BI service. So what we have to do, it's actually add it manually. It's kind of a hybrid mode between the shared or on the local machine and the online via XMLA.
I think your resolution is, maybe you can turn down your resolution a little bit, because everything is really small.
Yeah, sure thing.
Let me just,
Let me just
yeah, maybe you can also go down to full HD, just so people can see everything.
yes. Here we go. Keep changes. Sorry about that. What about now? Is it better?
This is much better, I think.
Yeah.
So
So basically,
analyzing Excel will come, right? That's coming.
so I have this Power BI data set right here. Let me just show you guys. Actually, I will start already with the admin mode, so we can show everything. So the admin mode was basically what we were talking about, that sometimes you don't have access. Let me just pull the tenant here a little bit. As you can see, I cannot see the MK workspace that Gregor used just before. I don't have access to that workspace. So I'm basically, I will try to analyze a data set that is residing in that workspace. So this is the weather data set, right? There is some reports connected to it, and let me just open my navigator here. I have a connection to Excel too. I use the analyze in Excel on that data set. That's basically some weather data. So it's temperature, wind, precipitation, all of that stuff. And here we have some very simple Excel file. We'll just close this. So basically what I'm going to do, I will connect to it, right? As Gregor showed before, nothing new. And now we got an error since it's a little bit, let me just reset this, which is, that's why we still have to test it. Just run it again.
Probably something you coded just before
Oh yeah.
messed it up. But yeah,
Let me just
we'll see. We'll get it up and running probably. Um,
turn an admin. Let's do this.
so the admin mode will run through the whole tenant. Remember, this is really cool, because you don't have to have access to a certain workspace anymore. You can really look through the whole tenant and find connected reports. And if we still or in order to analyze stuff, we still need to give your user permission to those workspaces. So that's what Measure Killer is doing here.
Exactly. And since I don't have permission to the MK, which now is working, I will the admin mode will add you to the workspace as a contributor. So as you can see, you don't have access to MK, granting access, and now we have to wait. Of course, I downgraded the wait time a little bit. There is a delay when I add somebody to when I add a user to a workspace. There is a little bit of a delay, so that's why we added this timer. And now we are doing the XMLA connection. Here we go. And here we have it. Now we have the same thing. Now what I have, it's basically everything. All the workspaces in the tenant, even the ones that I don't have access to. I will unselect all because I just want to add the MK and the PPU test just to be simple, because I know there is a lot of reports connected to those workspaces there. And I will just add the reports there. And as you can see now, just wait a little bit. Now we have those apps here. I don't want this, right? I don't want this. I want to kick this out. This is one of the things we're still working on. We have to fix. We have to remove the apps.
Yeah.
And as Bernard asked, now you can add your local files. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open this. I can either click here, add a single file, add from a folder, or I can simply drag and drop. So this is an empty report. I'm not going to add that. I'm just going to drag and drop this file here, and I will click apply. Now I
So this
have,
is
yeah,
sorry. So this is the only way we can add analyzing Excel files, right?
exactly. That's the only way. However, we can add paginated reports too, that way, or automatically detecting it. That's
So in
it's
this
already
list, we'll see the paginated reports, right?
exactly. We're gonna see, and we can
But
download.
But yeah, so analyzing Excel, you need to have the file locally. I mean, I don't know. Do people really upload the analyzing Excel files to the Power BI service? I don't know. Maybe some people do, but most of the time, I think people will build them on their desktop and then just save them or send them around or something. That's why, if you really want to have those part of the analysis, you need to be able to um, find them and then put them in there manually. I think we have not found any way to download them from the Power BI service if somebody uploaded them there and then put them into the analysis anyway. Yes, and of course, people do this and don't tell anyone, right? So we also don't know what the best way is to handle this problem, but we thought, okay, if you really want to have some crazy finance reports that some people built and they said, oh, I need this data set and I have done something there, then at least you will have this option to add this one or two reports there, and then you will make sure that those will not break when you when you when you when you remove stuff from your data set, right? That's the
Yeah.
main goal for us.
And we depend on the API calls, and we cannot get the analyze
Yeah,
the Excel files using an API.
right. So
So
that's
based, yeah,
that's it basically. But the paginated reports, they will be in here, or they already are in here automatically. We can export them. We can do everything automatically. But analyzing Excel is different.
yeah, and we can add as well new local files here, and for example Power BI files, and also the new file type, which is the Git file, which is the PBYP, if I'm not mistaken. We can add it here already. I don't have any, so I'll just use one Excel file. So as you can see here, let me just open my Power BI tenant again. You can see that I don't have access to the PPU test. I don't have access to this workspace that I'm trying to get. And I have this report called "You Can't Download Me," which is obviously I cannot download it because uh, I created on this report on the Power BI service, and I published it to another. workspace. So that's one of the things we cannot do. We cannot get a report. And I will leave it on purpose on the list so you can see what happens when there is an error. So I will just click on Run Now, and Measure Killer will give you the local file selected, the same thing as before, and I will click Yes. Now, the thing is, I don't have access to the PPU workspace. So Measure Killer will give me access. And here we go.
So that's the difference between the user that we run Measure Killer on. This person has to be a admin, a tenant admin in Power BI, but still it's a personal user that has access to some workspaces. So we're running admin API calls, we'll get everything there, but then still to export stuff, we need to get access basically to those reports.
Exactly. And the UI changed, right? The UI changed. We changed a little bit. Now, as you can see, we got an error for the "you can download me." This is a Power BI limitation. Nothing we can do about it. So now we can skip this item, right? We can either click no, then Measure Killer just stop, but I will click on skip. So here we have a skip, and then Measure Killer will keep getting all the reports connected to it.
Right.
We just have to wait a little bit. Of course, you can stop the download if something goes wrong or if something is taking too much time. And when Measure Killer is ready, then Measure Killer will prompt me saying, Measure Killer is ready. Do you want to remove the access granted to the workspaces? So now we gave access, but maybe it's super can be super annoying to remove yourself from all the workspaces.
Could be 10, 20 workspaces that people build reports on. And first of all, I would have to add myself and then remove myself again, right?
Yeah, exactly. So now I will click on yes, and before anybody asks, it will be not only available, of course, the Excel analysis not only for admins. It will be available on the normal shared online data set via XMLA too. So now we just click yes or no. It depends. I will click yes so you can see how it works. And now the main window of Measure Killer will appear and it will be executed normally. Just wait a little bit until it connects. And here we go. It's executing. It's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, the progress
And
bar at the bottom, we can see we have 100 artifacts, 100 measures and columns, also maybe some visuals.
exactly. And you can now have a quick pick on what's coming next. Here is the admin mode prompt or the log that is removing it's removing my user from the workspaces that Measure Killer added me to. We added some unused and used size too, so we can it's more accessible, I would say.
Right.
But that's basically it. That's the difference, and
And we have new columns, right? We have a new column in the output,
we have a new. Oh yes, of course, the uses.
number
I
of
almost forgot.
users.
Yes, we have the uses. So if you check it, you'll see the uses here. How
Because
many?
this is really important. Imagine we have now if you sort, for example, by the size, right? And maybe yeah, okay, the biggest columns are used, but it's really otherwise you have to count maybe or you have to see how often things are used. But here you can see you get an overview of how certain artifacts, how often they're used, and I think it adds some context to this.
Yeah, yeah, it's really helpful. And this new version that we're going to be releasing in 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to be able. Of course, this is a test version, so we are using the online mode, so we cannot remove. But we're going to be able to remove calculated columns like we do measures. So that's one of the
And we're
advantages.
gonna hide unused, we can hide unused columns. So we'll add some more capabilities there, right?
Yes. And
Can you-
yeah, sorry,
Sorry,
go ahead, please.
can you show and somewhere where we can see if it's used in analyzing Excel?
Oh yeah, of course. Let me just sort by name here. Let me see. If I'm not mistaken, actual temperature or actual wind is used in Excel. Oh yeah, here we go. So here we have Excel fields. I can maybe open this so we can see where it's used. It's kind of a messy Excel file. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Just
I'm
some
just
pivot table or what? Yeah.
yes, it's just some pivot. Oh, and here we have the actual wind speed. As you can see, it's not used anywhere else, or is it? Oh no, we have a cluster. Yeah, in the actual weather. But here we have it too. Actual temperature. Actual temperature should be there too. Oh, I'm looking at the actual temperature. Oh, here we go. Actual wind speed. That's the only one used only in the weather dataset dot
Right.
xlsx, the
So if we
Excel
didn't
file.
have that, we would remove it. The Excel report would break down.
Exactly. Exactly. And we consider obviously stuff on pivot tables and the cube formulas too. We took care of that. So yeah, even MDX measures that you create, we are considering that. But still in preview mode, so there might be some bugs. That's the first time we are releasing this. So please, if you find any bugs, just give us feedback.
Right. We have a question. Um, I'm just gonna show it here. Um, what about flat tables in Excel?
Flat tables in Excel. I think I think you are referring to um,
I
the
mean,
the
can
flat.
you use stuff from a
Yes.
Power BI data set in a normal table? Can you maybe if you can you convert the pivot table to a normal table? Maybe that's what Bernard means.
You can use, I think if I'm not mistaken, you can use the cube formulas to do that. You can, sorry,
DAX queries. He means
that's,
DAX queries.
no, yeah, well, we are getting there. We are analyzing it. Yes,
DAX queries are included.
yes, are included.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's true.
They, if you download a connected table, now we have another question. It creates a table with a text square.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's exactly.
The DAX,
I yeah,
yeah.
I might add.
MPX queries, right?
Yeah, yes, I might add that the Excel file is kind of limited. I was expecting more trouble coming for it, so from it, and actually it was way more simple than doing the Power BI part.
Yeah.
It's just more
More
straightforward, I
straightforward,
guess.
right?
But that's it for the new version, and yeah, we hope we release it soon. We have some news and some new features coming that are really helpful.
Yeah, I
And
think this is by far the biggest release we will do, maybe ever, because there's so many new features coming, a lot of bug fixes, um, and yeah, I think it will be an amazing new version. But we still need a few more weeks to finish building this, um, because there's just so much to test, especially in this admin mode with the admin APIs. We're still struggling with some things. Yeah. So this is it. I think thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And yeah, if there's any more questions, now is the time. Um, Otherwise, it's getting also a little late. I'm sure people wanna relax, go home. Please post your questions now. Otherwise, we'll end this. I hope I didn't forget anything. Um, Thank you for your feedback. Um, and yeah, if you're interested in Measure Killer, you can download it from the website, measurekiller.com. Um, like I said at the beginning, most features are free to use, but this online analysis and also the admin mode are a paid upgrade. You can also support us there a little bit because we have invested quite a lot of time in developing this tool. And that's why we also added a paid version, which also gives you dedicated support. So you will get support from us. You got help if you have any trouble using this tool. And yeah, otherwise, I think that's it. Klaus, do you have anything else?
No,
Okay. Well,
I'm done.
I think generally it seems like it worked. I think there was one problem with LinkedIn Live at one point. It went back a few minutes, Bernard said, but I think otherwise, at
Oh
least
my goodness.
from what we saw, everything was kind of okay.
Yeah, Martin commented actually 40 megabytes. Martin Fiedler.
Martin
He's,
also, I didn't see that. Oh,
yeah, it was kind of buggy,
oh
I
wow.
guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, I hope I didn't miss anything on LinkedIn. Let me just refresh so that we still have all the comments. But yeah, I think we're good. Yeah. So thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining. Maybe we can do this every month or so. Maybe we can also have a release party at some point when we bring out the next version. Thank you, Klaus, and yeah, have a good night,
Thank,
everyone.
thank
See
you,
you.
Gregor.